Did you know that 97% of people go through their entire lives without ever discovering the hidden commands that their subconscious mind issues every single day? These commands dictate their actions, shape their reality, and ultimately determine their success or failure. What if I told you that the difference between extraordinary achievement and mediocrity lies not in talent, education, or luck, but in your ability to recognize and reprogram these subconscious commands? Each morning, when you open your eyes, a battle begins within your mind. A battle most people don't even realize is happening. While you brush your teeth, plan your day, and drive to work, powerful forces below your conscious awareness are already deciding whether you'll seize opportunities or shrink from challenges, whether you'll push through difficulty or surrender to comfort, whether today will bring you one step closer to your dreams or keep you trapped in the same patterns that have held you back for years. I've spent decades studying the most successful men and women in America, from industrialists like Andrew Carnegie to inventors like Thomas Edison. I've interviewed hundreds of the wealthiest people of my generation, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, the quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by the hidden commands you give yourself at the start of each day. You see, your mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant in the first hour after waking will grow throughout your day. Most people unknowingly plant seeds of limitation, doubt, and mediocrity. They begin their mornings reactively checking messages, consuming negative news, or dwelling on problems. They're programming failure into their day before they even leave their bedroom. Is it any wonder they struggle to achieve the success they desire? But there exists a small group of extraordinary achievers who have discovered the secret of morning mental programming. These individuals have learned to hunt down the hidden commands of their subconscious and replace them with deliberate instructions that lead inexorably towards success. Their morning routine isn't just a series of habits. It's a systematic process for taking control of the most powerful force in human existence, the subconscious mind. In this transformative message, I'm going to reveal exactly how you can join this elite group. I'll show you how to identify the invisible commands currently running your life, many of which were installed decades ago without your knowledge or consent. More importantly, I'll teach you my proven method for replacing those commands with new instructions that will propel you toward wealth, influence, and fulfillment. This isn't theoretical knowledge or empty motivation. What I'm about to share with you is a practical, step-by-step process based on timeless principles that have created millionaires across generations, principles that work regardless of your background, education, or current circumstances. The method I'll reveal has been tested and refined through years of research and application. It doesn't require special equipment, advanced education, or hours of your precious time. In fact, the entire process takes just 17 minutes each morning. 17 minutes that will completely transform the remaining 16 hours of your waking day. Now, I understand if you're skeptical. Perhaps you've tried morning routines before without seeing meaningful results. Maybe you've read books about positive thinking that seem disconnected from your everyday reality. Or possibly you believe that your circumstances are uniquely challenging, that what works for others simply won't work for you. I've heard all these objections before, from countless individuals who later went on to achieve remarkable success using these very principles. The truth is, the method I'm about to share works for anyone willing to apply it consistently. It works because it operates in harmony with natural laws of the mind that affect every human being, regardless of their situation. Imagine waking up tomorrow with absolute clarity about your purpose and direction. Picture yourself moving through your day with unstoppable confidence, watching as opportunities appear where before you saw only obstacles. Envision having the mental fortitude to persist when others quit, the creativity to solve problems that stump your competitors, and the magnetic personal influence that draws success to you like a powerful force of nature. This isn't just possible, it's inevitable when you learn to hunt down and redirect the hidden commands of your subconscious mind. I must warn you, what I'm about to share will challenge conventional wisdom. It will require you to question assumptions you've held for years. Most significantly, it will demand that you take complete responsibility for your mental programming, with no excuses and no blame placed on external circumstances. Are you ready for that level of responsibility? Are you prepared to acknowledge that the quality of your life thus far has been determined not by what's happened to you, but by the subconscious commands you've allowed to operate unchecked? If so, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel right now before we continue. This simple action does more than just ensure you receive future insights. It represents a commitment to your own transformation. It's your first step toward taking control of your mental programming rather than allowing it to control you. Now, let's explore why most people remain trapped in mediocrity, and how you can break free starting tomorrow morning. The tragedy of human potential isn't that we aim too high and fail, it's that we aim too low and succeed. When I look across America today, I see millions of men and women sleepwalking through life, their magnificent capabilities dormant, their extraordinary potential unrealized. And what's most heartbreaking is that they don't even recognize the prison they've built for themselves. Let me be direct. Your mind is currently operating at less than 10% of its true capacity. This isn't merely my opinion. It's a demonstrable fact that I've confirmed through decades of research. The remaining 90% lies dormant, locked away behind the barriers of subconscious programming that occurs in the critical first hour after you wake. Every morning, as consciousness returns, your brain experiences a unique stata-brief window where the analytical functions haven't fully engaged, but awareness has begun. Neuroscientists now call this the hypnopompic state, but I identified its significance long before they had a name for it. During this transition from sleep to wakefulness, your subconscious mind is extraordinarily receptive. The commands it receives during this period will echo throughout your day, influencing every decision, interaction, and opportunity. Here's the problem most people face. They surrender this precious mental programming time to habit and circumstance. They reach for their phone, absorbing whatever messages, news, or social media happens to appear. They worry about upcoming meetings or dwell on yesterday's problems. They rush through their morning in a fog of unconscious reactions rather than deliberate programming. The consequences are severe and far-reaching. When you allow random inputs to program your subconscious during this critical window, you forfeit control of your most powerful mental resource. It's like allowing a powerful automobile to be driven by whatever wind happens to blow, rather than steering it deliberately toward your chosen destination. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You encounter an opportunity, but instead of seeing its potential, your subconscious issues a warning. This is risky. Stay with what's familiar. You face a challenge, but rather than summoning your creative problem-solving abilities, your internal dialogue whispers, "This is too difficult." Find an excuse to avoid it. You meet someone who could help advance your goals, but your programming commands, "Don't speak up. You don't belong in this circle." These are not conscious thoughts, they're subconscious commands, issued instantly and automatically before your analytical mind even engages with the situation. By the time you're consciously considering your options, the subconscious has already determined your likely course of action. I've observed this pattern with remarkable consistency across thousands of individuals. The bankers who never take calculated risks necessary for exceptional returns, the salespeople who subconsciously sabotage their presentations just as they approach closing. the entrepreneurs who unconsciously create emergencies whenever they're on the verge of a breakthrough, the artists who find endless reasons to delay completing their most important work. Conventional approaches to success fail to address this fundamental issue. They focus on tactics, techniques, and external strategies while ignoring the subconscious programming that determines whether those strategies will be effectively implemented. It's like giving someone an excellent map while their internal navigation system is programmed to drive in circles. Most personal development philosophies make the critical error of assuming that knowledge and motivation alone can overcome subconscious resistance. They promise that if you simply learn enough strategies or get sufficiently inspired, you'll break through your limitations. My research conclusively proves this approach is backwards. Knowledge and motivation are certainly valuable, but they're routinely overridden by subconscious programming. Consider the individual who knows precisely what actions would advance their career, possesses all the skills necessary, and genuinely desires success yet repeatedly fails to take those actions. Or the person who sincerely commits to improving their health, purchases equipment and memberships, and still finds themselves abandoning their plans within weeks. These aren't failures of knowledge or desire, they're failures of subconscious programming. I've interviewed countless individuals who achieved modest success through conventional methods, only to discover they'd reached an invisible ceiling. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't progress beyond a certain level of achievement, income, or influence. In each case, when we examined their morning mental routine, we discovered subconscious commands that were directly contradicting their conscious goals. The stark reality is this: 98% of people live their entire lives at the mercy of subconscious programming they never chose and don't even recognize is operating. Like a computer running outdated software, they attempt to function in today's world using mental commands installed decades ago from during childhood, when they lacked the discernment to reject limiting beliefs. The minority who achieve extraordinary success aren't necessarily more talented, educated, or fortunate than others. What separates them is their mastery of subconscious programming, specifically their ability to hunt down and replace limiting commands during the critical first hour of their day. They've discovered that by controlling this one aspect of their mental function, they gain leverage over every other aspect of their lives. The question isn't whether your subconscious mind is being programmed each morning. It absolutely is. The question is whether you're allowing that programming to happen randomly, or directing it intentionally toward your highest aspirations. And that's where my discovery offers you unprecedented power to transform your life. After decades studying the minds of America's most accomplished individuals, I've discovered a pattern so consistent and powerful that it cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Every truly successful person, whether they realize it consciously or not, has developed a method for directing their subconscious mind during the first hour after waking. I call this process subconscious command hunting, and I believe it represents the most significant breakthrough in the science of personal achievement. Unlike conventional morning routines that focus merely on physical activities or vague notions of positivity, subconscious command hunting is a precise psychological methodology. It allows you to identify and reprogram the specific mental instructions that have been invisibly governing your behavior, often for decades. More importantly, it enables you to install new commands that align perfectly with your highest aspirations. When I first began researching this phenomenon, I was struck by the remarkable consistency with which successful people approached their mornings. From industrialists like Henry Ford to inventors like Thomas Edison, from political leaders to artists, the pattern was unmistakable. Though they used different terminology and techniques, they were all engaging in essentially the same process, deliberately programming their subconscious. During the hypnopompic state between sleep and full wakefulness, What makes this approach uniquely powerful is that it operates at the root level of human behavior, rather than attempting to force change through willpower, which inevitably exhausts itself. It reconfigures the automatic instructions that precede conscious choice. When properly implemented, you'll find yourself naturally taking actions aligned with your goals, without the internal resistance that has previously held you back. I've personally tested this method with thousands of individuals across every conceivable background and circumstance. I've seen it transform the lives of factory workers and executives, artists and engineers, young people starting their careers, and retirees beginning new chapters. The principles work universally because they align with the fundamental laws of mind that govern all human achievement. Let me be clear about what makes this approach different from what you may have tried before. Most morning routines focus on what you do physically: exercise, meditation, journaling. These activities certainly have value, but they often fail to directly address the subconscious programming that determines whether such habits will be sustained. Subconscious command hunting goes deeper, reconfiguring the mental software that runs beneath all your daily activities. Similarly, many personal development approaches emphasize affirmations or visualization without providing the critical foundation that makes these techniques effective. Merely repeating positive statements while your subconscious rejects them creates internal conflict rather than transformation. The method I've developed ensures that new commands are accepted and integrated at the deepest level of your mind. What you're about to learn represents the culmination of my life's research into human potential. While I've shared aspects of these principles in my previous work, I've never before revealed the complete system in this specific context. I've waited until I could verify through exhaustive testing that the method produces consistent results across diverse circumstances. Now, I understand you may be wondering whether this approach can truly work for you. Given your unique challenges and situation, perhaps you've tried other methods without seeing lasting results. Maybe you feel your circumstances are particularly difficult, or that you lack some advantage others possess. Let me assure you that the principles I'm about to share transcend individual circumstances because they operate at the level of universal mental laws. Consider this: every major achievement in human history first existed as a thought pattern in someone's mind before it became physical reality. The skyscrapers transforming our cities, the inventions revolutionizing our industries, the businesses creating prosperity all began as mental patterns before manifesting in the material world. By mastering the process through which thought becomes reality, you place yourself at the control point of creation. The method I'll share with you doesn't require special talents, advanced education, or favorable circumstances. It doesn't demand hours of your time or expensive resources. It asks only that you dedicate 17 focused minutes each morning to hunting down and reprogramming the subconscious commands that determine your day's trajectory. What makes this approach particularly powerful is that it creates compound effects over time. Each day you implement the process, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with achievement while weakening those linked to limitation. Within weeks, you'll experience noticeable shifts in your perception, behavior, and results. Within months, these changes will be visible to everyone around you. Within a year, you may find yourself in circumstances so improved that your former life seems like a distant memory. I've witnessed this transformation repeatedly: the saleswoman who doubled her income within 3 months, the writer who finally completed the book they'd been struggling with for years, the executive who overcame crippling anxiety to become a compelling public speaker, the entrepreneur who transformed a failing business into a market leader. These aren't exceptional cases, they represent the natural outcome of applying these principles consistently. The extraordinary becomes ordinary when you understand and implement the laws governing achievement. In the next portion of our discussion, I'll reveal the specific elements of subconscious command hunting, the precise steps you'll take each morning to identify and reprogram your mental instructions. I'll explain not just what to do, but why each component works at a neurological and psychological level. Most importantly, I'll show you how to customize the process to address your particular goals and overcome your specific limitations. Prepare yourself for a fundamental shift in how you understand your own mind and its untapped capabilities. What you're about to discover isn't merely another self-improvement technique, it's a complete reimagining of what's possible in your life when you take control of your morning mental programming. The method of subconscious command hunting consists of several integrated principles that work in concert to reprogram your mental operating system. Each element addresses a specific aspect of subconscious functioning and, when combined, creates a complete transformation of your mental landscape. Let me walk you through these fundamental principles one by one. The first foundation of this method is what I call the awakened transition principle. In the moments between sleep and full wakefulness, your mind exists in a unique state where the barrier between conscious and subconscious is temporarily thinned. This state, similar to the hypnotic condition, allows for direct reprogramming of your mental commands without the usual resistance offered by the analytical mind. Think of your subconscious as a vast ocean, and your conscious mind as merely the surface waves. Most people attempt to change their lives by manipulating those surface waves, unaware that the powerful currents beneath determine where those waves will ultimately travel. The awakened transition principle gives you access to those deeper currents during a daily window of opportunity that most people completely waste. This principle operates like the changing of guards at an ancient fortress. There is a brief period when one shift is leaving and another arriving, a moment of transition when the gates are open and new instructions can be delivered. Miss this window, and the fortress closes, making any change far more difficult to implement. I recall working with a prominent banker who had struggled for years with paralyzing fear before important presentations. Despite extensive coaching and practice, he would find himself physically ill before major meetings. When we implemented the awakened transition principle, having him program specific commands during his morning transition state, his fear dissipated within 2 weeks. 6 months later, he was promoted to a position requiring regular public speaking, something previously unimaginable to him. The key to applying this principle is establishing what I call a transition trigger, a specific action that you take immediately upon waking that signals to your mind that programming is about to begin. This might be as simple as placing your hand over your heart and taking 3 deep breaths, or speaking a specific phrase that you use only for this purpose. The action itself matters less than its consistency and your intention behind it. The second fundamental principle is command excavation. Most people never achieve their potential because they remain unaware of the existing commands already running their lives. Before installing new programming, you must bring to light the hidden instructions currently operating beneath your awareness. Imagine a farmer attempting to plant a new crop without first seeing what's already growing in his fields. He might unknowingly scatter seeds among aggressive weeds that will choke out his intended harvest. Similarly, many people attempt to adopt new habits or mindsets without first identifying the contradictory programs already running in their subconscious. Command excavation operates like an archaeological dig into your own psyche. Each morning you'll use a specific questioning technique to uncover the automatic instructions that have been silently directing your behavior. These commands often originate in childhood, installed by well-meaning parents, teachers, or early experiences. They may have served a protective purpose in your early life, but now function as limitations on your growth. I worked with a talented artist who could never seem to complete her most meaningful projects. Through command excavation, she discovered a subconscious instruction installed during her youth. Don't stand out or you'll be criticized. This command had been sabotaging her work whenever it approached a level of quality that might attract significant attention. Once exposed to conscious awareness, this limiting command lost much of its power, and she completed her first major collection within months. The technique involves asking yourself a series of penetrating questions immediately after your transition trigger. Questions like, what am I avoiding today without logical reason? Or, if I were guaranteed success, what would I do differently? And what pattern has repeatedly prevented my progress? The answers that arise, particularly those that create emotional discomfort, often point directly to subconscious commands that have been invisibly directing your behavior. The third principle of this method is command replacement. Nature abhors a vacuum, and your mind is no exception. It's insufficient to merely identify limiting commands. You must immediately replace them with new instructions that align with your highest aspirations. This principle functions like the reprogramming of a sophisticated computer. Simply deleting problematic code creates instability in the system. The old programming must be overwritten with new, more effective instructions that serve your current purposes. Command replacement involves crafting precise language that speaks directly to your subconscious mind. Unlike typical affirmations, which often feel false to the subconscious and create resistance, these commands are structured in a specific format that bypasses analytical resistance. Consider the experience of a manufacturing executive I counseled who struggled with delegating tasks, creating a bottleneck in his organization. Through command excavation, he identified the subconscious instruction. If you want something done right, you must do it yourself. Using command replacement, we overrode this with, I find and develop people who excel at tasks that free me for leadership. Notice the command doesn't deny his desire for quality work, but redirects it through a more leveraged approach. The structure of effective replacement commands follows a precise formula. They must be stated in present tense, focus on what you're moving toward rather than away from, include a sensory component, and incorporate an element of identity, who you are becoming, not just what you're doing. When crafted correctly, these commands register as authentic to your subconscious, eliminating the internal contradiction that makes most affirmations ineffective. The fourth principle is emotional integration. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond primarily to words, it responds to the emotional states associated with those words. To effectively install new commands, you must generate the emotional experience that makes those commands feel real and compelling. This principle works like the setting of concrete. Just as concrete requires proper conditions to harden into a durable foundation, your new commands need appropriate emotional conditions to solidify in your mental framework. Without this emotional component, even the most perfectly crafted commands will fail to create lasting change. I worked with a sales professional who understood intellectually that rejection wasn't personal, yet still experienced devastating emotional responses to each no. Through emotional integration, he learned to generate the specific emotional state of detached curiosity. When installing his new command, each refusal reveals the path to my next success. Within 60 days, his sales numbers had increased by 78%, not because the market had changed, but because his emotional response to rejection had transformed. The technique involves a specific visualization process combined with physical gestures that anchor emotional states to your new commands. You'll learn to generate and intensify precisely the emotional conditions that make your new programming irresistible to your subconscious mind. The fifth and final principle is command reinforcement. Even the most powerful morning programming requires strategic reinforcement throughout your day. Without this component, the natural entropy of daily life will gradually weaken your new instructions. This principle functions like the regular maintenance of a precision instrument. Even the finest watch requires occasional adjustment to maintain perfect accuracy. Similarly, your mental programming needs strategic reinforcement to maintain its effectiveness amid life's challenges. Command reinforcement involves creating environmental triggers that automatically activate your new programming at key moments throughout your day. These triggers might be as simple as a specific word you've written on a card you keep in your pocket, a unique ring you wear, or an image on your phone's background. I recall a physician who struggled with maintaining compassionate presence during busy clinic days. Through command reinforcement, he programmed his wedding ring as a trigger. Each time he felt it against his skin before entering an exam room, it activated his command, "I bring healing presence to each person I serve." His patient satisfaction scores rose dramatically, not through additional medical training, but through consistent reinforcement of his compassionate presence. The effectiveness of these triggers comes from their specificity and consistency. By associating a particular sensory experience exclusively with your new command, you create a neural pathway that automatically activates that programming whenever the trigger is experienced. When these 5 principles awakened transition, command excavation, command replacement, emotional integration, and command reinforcement are implemented together in a systematic morning practice, they create a fundamental shift in your mental operating system. The changes you'll experience aren't merely psychological, they manifest in tangible results across every area of your life. I've seen individuals transform their financial circumstances within months of implementing this system. I've witnessed chronic health conditions improve when limiting commands around self-care were replaced. I've observed struggling relationships heal when subconscious instructions about communication and vulnerability were reprogrammed. What makes this approach so powerful is that it addresses the root system of achievement rather than merely trimming the branches. By changing the fundamental instructions your mind follows, you alter the entire trajectory of your life. I encourage you to reflect on what you've learned thus far. Which of these principles resonates most strongly with your current situation? What hidden commands might be operating beneath your awareness, silently determining your outcomes? How might your life transform if you began deliberately programming your mind each morning, rather than surrendering that power to habit and circumstance? Leave a comment below sharing which principle speaks most directly to your situation. This simple act of engagement will help solidify these concepts in your understanding and connect you with others on the same journey of transformation. Now, let's address the questions and doubts that may be arising in your mind as you consider implementing this method in your own life. As you consider implementing subconscious command hunting in your own life, I anticipate certain questions and concerns arising in your mind. Let me address these directly, for I've encountered them countless times in my work with individuals across all walks of life. Perhaps you're thinking, this sounds powerful, but my mind races the moment I wake up. How can I possibly achieve this transition state when I'm immediately bombarded with thoughts about the day ahead? This common concern reflects precisely why most people never harness the power of their subconscious mind. The very mental chatter you describe is evidence of random programming already occurring, just not under your deliberate direction. The technique I've developed begins not by fighting this mental activity but by channeling it through a specific sequence of thoughts that gradually quiet the analytical mind. Much like a skilled horse trainer doesn't begin by fighting a wild stallion, but instead uses precise techniques to establish calm communication. You'll learn to guide your morning mental state rather than battle against it. Have you ever noticed how your mind naturally drifts toward certain thoughts upon waking? This isn't random, it's a pattern established through repetition. By introducing a new pattern with consistent practice, you literally reshape the neural pathways that activate upon awakening. Within days, you'll find the transition state becomes increasingly accessible, often within moments of opening your eyes. Another objection I frequently hear is, "I've tried positive thinking and affirmations before without seeing results. Why would this approach be any different?" This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about how the mind truly works. Conventional positive thinking often fails because it creates conflict between your conscious declarations and subconscious programming. It's like pressing the accelerator while the emergency brake remains engaged. You generate noise and smoke but make little progress. Subconscious command hunting succeeds, where mere positive thinking fails because it addresses the root programming rather than attempting to override it through force. It's the difference between repeatedly painting over a wall with cracks in the foundation versus repairing the foundation itself. The former approach requires constant maintenance and ultimately fails. The latter creates lasting transformation. You might also wonder, how can a mere 17 minutes each morning create significant change when I've struggled with these patterns for years or even decades? This question reflects our natural tendency to associate meaningful change with prolonged effort. Yet consider how a small shift in the rudder of a ship creates a dramatically different destination over time. The power of this method lies not in the duration of practice, but in the strategic leverage it provides. When you reprogram the commands that operate throughout your 16 waking hours, you transform thousands of daily decisions and responses. Each of these altered responses creates new possibilities, which in turn generate further opportunities for advancement. It's not the 17 minutes alone that create change, it's the cascade of different choices those minutes make possible throughout your day. Perhaps your mind protests. My circumstances are uniquely challenging. Others might achieve results with this approach, but my situation is different. I've heard this concern from individuals facing every conceivable hardship: financial ruin, chronic illness, family tragedy, business collapse. What I've discovered through working with thousands of people is that external circumstances rarely determine outcomes as much as the mental commands through which we interpret and respond to those circumstances. Consider two individuals facing identical job loss. One experiences it as catastrophic evidence of personal failure, triggering a spiral of defeat that extends their unemployment. Another recognizes it as a temporary circumstance, an opportunity for redirection, leading them to secure an even better position within weeks. The external event was identical. The subconscious commands interpreting that event created entirely different outcomes. Some of you may be thinking, I don't have control over my wake-up time or morning schedule. My children, work demands, or other responsibilities make a consistent morning practice impossible. This practical concern is precisely why I've designed the method to be implemented in as little as 17 minutes. Requiring no special equipment or environment. Whether you wake at 4 a.m. or 9 a.m., whether you have a peaceful home or a chaotic one, the principles can be applied in any setting. I've worked with emergency room physicians who practice these techniques in the brief moments before their shifts, executives who implement them during their morning commute, and parents who incorporate them while preparing breakfast for their families. The method's flexibility is one of its greatest strengths. Perhaps the most significant resistance comes not from practical concerns, but from a deeper question. Do I truly deserve the success this method might bring? This question often remains unspoken, yet it underlies much of the resistance people experience, the insidious belief that we must somehow earn the right to fulfill our potential serves as one of the most limiting subconscious commands. The truth is that extraordinary achievement isn't something you earn through suffering or struggle. It's the natural expression of a mind properly aligned with its highest capabilities. Just as an acorn contains everything necessary to become a mighty oak, Your mind already possesses everything required for remarkable success. The process I'm sharing simply removes the obstacles preventing that natural expression of your inherent potential. Now, let's examine how these principles work together as an integrated system, creating a transformation far greater than any single element could produce alone. The true power of subconscious command hunting emerges not from any single principle but from their systematic integration. When properly combined, these elements create a transformation greater than the sum of its parts, much like individual musical notes that, when played together, form a chord capable of stirring the deepest emotions. Consider the extraordinary mechanism of a Swiss watch. Each gear, spring, and jewel bearing serves a specific function, yet it's their precise arrangement and synchronized movement that creates a timepiece of remarkable accuracy. Similarly, while each principle of this method produces valuable results independently, their integrated application creates a comprehensive reprogramming of your mental landscape. This integration follows what I call the compounding cycle of mental mastery. Each principle reinforces and amplifies the others, creating an upward spiral of increasing effectiveness. The awakened transition state makes command excavation more penetrating and insightful. Thorough command excavation enables more precise command replacement. Effective command replacement enhanced by emotional integration creates more powerful anchors for command reinforcement. And consistent command reinforcement deepens your ability to access the awakened transition state the following morning. With each cycle through this system, your mental programming becomes increasingly aligned with your highest aspirations. The process resembles compound interest in finance. Small, consistent investments yield exponential returns over time, just as a single dollar invested properly can grow to a fortune through compounding. A few minutes of daily mental programming compounds into extraordinary transformation over weeks and months. To illustrate this integration, let me share the complete system as it unfolds across your 17-minute morning practice. You begin the moment you open your eyes, before reaching for your phone or engaging with the day's responsibilities. You activate your transition trigger, perhaps placing your hand over your heart while taking 3 deep breaths. This simple action signals to your subconscious mind that programming is about to occur, creating a momentary opening between your sleeping and waking states. In this receptive condition, you then implement command excavation by asking yourself a series of penetrating questions designed to reveal the hidden instructions currently operating in your life. You might inquire, what am I avoiding without logical reason? Or what pattern repeatedly appears in my challenges? The answers that arise, particularly those accompanied by emotional discomfort, reveal subconscious commands that have been invisibly directing your behavior. Having identified a limiting command, you immediately employ command replacement, overriding the old instruction with a new, more empowering direction. If you discovered the command, I must never make mistakes, you might replace it with I transform every experience into wisdom that advances my purpose. This replacement isn't merely intellectual, you now engage emotional integration, generating the precise emotional state that makes your new command compelling to your subconscious. This involves visualizing yourself embodying this new command in a future scenario, experiencing the positive emotions associated with this new way of operating, and anchoring those feelings through specific physical gestures. Finally, you establish command reinforcement by selecting triggers from your environment that will reactivate this programming throughout your day. You might choose the sensation of your feet touching the floor when you stand, the feel of a doorknob in your hand, or the sound of your phone ringing as moments to briefly reconnect with your new command. This entire sequence, from transition trigger to reinforcement planning, requires just 17 focused minutes. Yet its effects will ripple through your entire day, influencing countless decisions and responses. The system functions like irrigation channels in agriculture. The farmer doesn't need to water each plant individually, he simply ensures the channels are properly aligned, allowing water to flow precisely where it's needed with minimal ongoing effort. Similarly, your morning practice aligns your mental channels, allowing your natural energy and abilities to flow precisely where they'll create maximum benefit. Over time, this integrated practice creates what I call command momentum. Each successfully implemented command makes the next one easier to install. Each limiting belief you identify and replace weakens the hold of all remaining negative programming. Each emotional integration strengthens your capacity for future transformations. This momentum explains why practitioners often report that the early weeks require more conscious effort, while later implementation becomes increasingly effortless. The system begins to sustain itself as your subconscious mind recognizes the benefits of this new programming approach. To fully grasp the integration of these principles, imagine your mind as a magnificent orchestral hall. Each morning you serve as the conductor, ensuring every instrument plays in harmony rather than allowing random discordant notes to dominate. With consistent practice, the orchestra, your mental faculties, learns to follow your direction with increasing precision, creating music of extraordinary beauty and power where once there was merely noise. The beauty of this integrated system lies in its universal applicability. Whether your goals involve financial prosperity, physical vitality, meaningful relationships, creative expression, or spiritual development, the same core process applies. The specific commands you hunt and replace will differ, but the fundamental method remains consistent across all dimensions of achievement. Now that you understand how these principles work together, let me offer you a clear path to implementing this system in your own life, beginning tomorrow morning. The moment of decision has arrived. As you stand at this crossroads, two paths stretch before you. One leads to continued struggle against the invisible resistance of your current mental programming path. You've walked long enough to know its limitations. The other leads to mastery of your subconscious mind and the extraordinary achievements that flow from that mastery. I cannot make this choice for you. No one can. The decision to implement what you've learned today rests entirely in your hands. But I can tell you with absolute certainty what awaits on each path. If you choose to continue as before, allowing your morning mental state to be programmed randomly by circumstances rather than intention, you can expect your results to remain largely unchanged. You may experience occasional breakthroughs through sheer persistence, but you'll continue to face the same internal resistance that has limited your progress thus far. The gap between your potential and your reality will persist, perhaps widening with each passing year. But if you choose to implement subconscious command hunting, if you commit to just 17 focused minutes each morning, you set in motion forces that will transform every aspect of your life. The change begins subtly at first, almost imperceptibly, like the initial movement of a massive ship changing course. But with each passing day, the new direction becomes more evident, carrying you toward achievements you once considered beyond your reach. The implementation begins tomorrow morning, not next Monday, not when circumstances are more favorable, not after you've read more or prepared more thoroughly. Tomorrow, the perfect moment for transformation, is never in some distant future. It's in the immediate next opportunity. Here is your specific plan of action. Before you go to sleep tonight, place this reminder on your nightstand or somewhere you'll see it immediately upon waking. I now hunt and reprogram the commands that shape my day. This physical reminder serves as an external trigger for your new morning practice. When you open your eyes tomorrow, before touching your phone or engaging with anyone else, activate your transition trigger by placing your hand over your heart and taking 3 deep breaths. This simple action signals to your subconscious mind that programming is about to begin. Ask yourself these specific excavation questions. What am I avoiding that would most benefit my progress? And what pattern has repeatedly limited my achievements? Write down the first answers that arise, particularly those that create emotional discomfort. For each limiting command you identify, craft a replacement using this structure. I present tense action that creates specific benefit because I am identity statement. For example, if you discovered the limiting command success brings unwanted attention, you might replace it with I embrace visibility that expands my influence because I am a leader who serves through example. Generate the emotional state that makes this new command compelling. Visualize yourself 1 year from now, having fully integrated this new programming. Experience the confidence, satisfaction, and power of operating from this new command. While in this emotional state, physically anchor the feeling by bringing your thumb and forefinger together in a specific gesture you don't commonly use. Select 3 environmental triggers you'll encounter during your day, perhaps the sensation of water on your hands, the sound of your phone ringing, or the act of sitting down at your desk. Each time you experience these triggers, briefly reconnect with your new command by recreating your anchor gesture and mentally affirming your new programming. This entire process requires just 17 minutes, yet those minutes will influence the 16 hours that follow in ways you cannot yet imagine. And when implemented consistently, day after day, they will utterly transform your life within a remarkably short time. Do not wait until you feel ready or confident. The very nature of subconscious programming is that it creates feelings which then justify continued limitation. If you wait until you feel completely prepared, you will wait forever. Begin tomorrow, exactly where you are, with whatever level of understanding you currently possess. The practice itself will deepen your mastery with each implementation. I must warn you of one significant danger: the urge to overcomplicate this process. Your analytical mind, threatened by the prospect of fundamental change, may suggest that you need more information, more preparation, more complex techniques before beginning. This is resistance disguising itself as prudence. The method works precisely because of its focused simplicity. Trust the process as outlined. Recognize that this decision to implement or not represents more than a choice about how you'll spend 17 minutes tomorrow morning. It represents a fundamental choice about who you are becoming and what you believe is possible for your life. It is a declaration of whether you will continue to accept the programming installed by circumstance and past experiences, or whether you will take command of the most powerful force in human experience, your subconscious mind. The time for theoretical understanding has passed. The moment for implementation has arrived. Will you continue to accept the limited results that random programming produces? Or will you take control of your mental landscape and direct it toward extraordinary achievement? Subscribe to this channel now to join a community of individuals committed to this transformation. Share in the comments below one limiting command you've identified and the replacement you'll install tomorrow morning. Your declaration creates accountability and inspires others on the same journey. The difference between the life you've imagined and the life you're currently living comes down to this single decision. Will you begin hunting the hidden commands of your subconscious mind, starting tomorrow morning? The choice, and all that flows from it, is yours alone to make.